But when he still didn't see him that night, that was when he started overthinking. The younger always greeted him. Jungkook never hugged him whenever he came home, but he would always take his suit and ties off for him. Then he would bring him a new set of casual clothes, ones he personally picked because he thought they would make him feel comfortable. Then he would serve the dinner. He would usually cook them as well. Taehyung didn't even know what his cooks were for anymore since his husband did their job all the time. Jungkook and Taehyung didn't sleep together, so that was when the younger's job as his husband would end. They didn't cuddle in bed like a real couple. They didn't kiss each other goodnight like a real couple. They didn't even hold each other's hands. It was as if they just started dating, without actually dating each other. Taehyung did appreciate what the younger was doing, but he appreciated them secretly. He wasn't used to showing his emotions. He wasn't also going to, especially to Jungkook. He was still his unwanted husband, after all. So why was he worried? The next days were like that too. He was starting to forget he has a husband without Jungkook's presence, or that's what he would tell himself. He knew he was starting to care for the younger. Aside from his mother, Jungkook was one of the fewest people who showed him true, I don't know, love. Jungkook cared for him and took care of him. He was like his mom, but the love they gave him was different in a way he couldn't explain. He knew he was starting to feel something he didn't want for Jungkook. But how could he run away from the younger if he were everywhere? Now he was nowhere though. So why was Taehyung looking for him? Why was he turning soft for Jungkook? It has only been a month, so how could Jungkook turn someone like him soft? It was almost unacceptable. He knew he had to make a move. He has to know what was wrong with the younger, or his mind would not let him sleep peacefully at night. Taehyung was up earlier than usual that day. He has been standing in front of his husband's door for a long while now after getting ready for work, but he still waited for a little while longer. He tried to compose himself. What would he say when he saw Jungkook after opening the door? That he just wanted to make sure he was doing good? No, that was just not like him. That would sound so weird to him. He jolted in surprise when he heard a thump and then footsteps running. Worried as to what was happening to his husband, he opened the door to Jungkook's room and saw him running towards the bathroom. The older was confused, but he still followed Jungkook when he heard him showing up. It was like his instinct taking control when he began caressing the younger's back softly. He would have been disgusted to witness this if this was another person, but this was his husband. The same husband he has been hating though. Worry enveloped him as he watched Jungkook wash his face on the sink. He hasn't seen the younger for days, and this was how they greet each other again. Wow. Wait. He felt himself freeze when the realization hit him. The maid told him that his husband was often feeling tired. Jungkook was getting weird too. He would sometimes act differently from how he would usually act as well. It was not a good idea for Taehyung, but it was a possibility. He didn't want to ask, but he needed to, or he wouldn't be able to sleep at all, and wouldn't be able to work either. So when Jungkook finally turned around to look at him, Taehyung didn't let the opportunity slip and asked the younger with the skin on his forehead furrowing. Are you pregnant? The first time Jungkook suspected it was when he threw up first thing in the morning for 5 days straight. He wasn't feeling dizzy, but he felt tired. He was lacking the energy that he always had, and it was starting to annoy him. He wanted to do something, but he also didn't want to move. He wanted to help with the house chores like usual, but his body wouldn't cooperate. The second time he suspected it was when he started hating things he always loved. He stopped cooking because the food smell started to disgust him. He stopped making his husband's coffee every morning because he hated its smell too. The maids were the ones who noticed it. The way he complained when he didn't get what he wanted. The way his face scrunched and looked like he was about to throw up whenever he smelled something bad. The way he would move lazily around and stay on the couch most of the time. "Why don't you try taking a pregnancy test?" a maid asked. Jungkook froze in his spot. He didn't want to. He was scared. He knew he didn't have to use a pregnancy test, but he must make sure of it. His husband was out at work that day, and he was glad at that fact. So Taehyung didn't know when Jungkook asked one of their maids to buy him a pregnancy test. The older didn't know when Jungkook tried it. Taehyung didn't know that the result was positive as well. Jungkook tried hiding it. He was scared of his husband's reaction. He didn't know how the older would handle it, how he would handle the fact that he impregnated someone as low as Jungkook. He knew it was not his fault. He also knew it was not Taehyung's. But it was not the baby's as well. What if he didn't want it? What if he told him to abort it? To kill it? Jungkook wouldn't take that nicely. He was already unwanted by his husband. He didn't want his child to be the same. So when the maids asked him what the result was, he answered negative. He threw the test away without anyone seeing it. He told the maids not to tell a word to their boss about it. He even told them that he was a man. Of course, he wouldn't get pregnant, so the test was no use even though impreg was common. He lied, and he would continue lying to anyone but himself. He would be lying to save his baby. They didn't have to know. The child's father didn't have to, either. Jungkook could hide it, and he would hide it as long as he could. He would keep this baby no matter what, and he would love them like how his parents loved him. He would make sure to keep them safe from anyone who wanted to harm them. That baby was now his life. So imagine what Jungkook would have felt when his husband asked him that question. "Are you pregnant?" It echoed in his mind a couple of times, again and again, until he was pulled out of it. He felt a grip on his arms, and he anxiously looked up at the older, while shrugging his hands off of his hold. Jungkook was scared. He was so close to crying, but he stopped the tears, even before they started to fall on his cheeks. He has to stay strong for his baby. He wanted to say yes, he was pregnant. He wanted to say it, with excitement laced in his voice, happiness seen through his eyes, and a big smile on his lips. But he couldn't, so he let out a trembling no. The younger was shaking in fear, as if the baby he was carrying wasn't Taehyung's, and he was afraid the older would figure it out. But no, the truth was that Jungkook was afraid of Taehyung seeing through his lie. The younger saw how his husband's frown deepened, and he unconsciously wrapped his arms around his stomach, an act of ensuring his baby's safety. The action hadn't gone unnoticed by the older, for his eyes trailed down to the younger's belly. Jungkook stepped backward, cowering down as Taehyung took a step closer to him. He reached a hand forward, and that was when Jungkook flinched. Maybe he couldn't hide it longer than he already had. Who was he kidding anyway? How would he hide something as big as this from someone he's living with? "Yes, I'm pregnant," he screamed, his voice pitching higher than it was when he was feeling excited. "Please let me keep them," he cried, pleading and begging hysterically for his baby's life. A disappointed look settled on Taehyung's face. The younger didn't know how to feel when he saw it, but he knew he couldn't stop his tears from falling anymore, so he let the tears flood down his face. He cried not because Taehyung found it out, but because he was disappointed about it. Jungkook knew the older wouldn't like it, but he still couldn't get himself to accept Taehyung's reaction. He was hurt. Now he was starting to realize how poor he was. Poor of chances to feel Tae-hyung's love. Poor of chances to be part of his world. Because Tae-hyung was like his dreams when he was younger, he was too high that Jungkook was now doubting himself if he could reach him. Only now it was not his mother that was scared for him. Now he was scared for his baby, so he pleaded even more, "Please, let me keep them."